Hey everybody, this is Faded Glory, the American Patriot from Stars and Stripes Action. You have to excuse the appearance. This is due to biology, not choice. But what I do have a choice is telling you guys the truth and laying down the real. Especially you youngsters out there, going to school, going to college, maybe you're out there working, pursuing the American dream. If you don't wake the fuck up pretty soon, there ain't gonna be no American dream. This is the real. Let me start by having you ask yourself a question. Does anybody out there believe that large numbers of people got together, forming all the countries of the world, to live under oppression and under a dictatorship? If you do, then you might as well stop watching now, because you're too fucking stupid to comprehend what I'm going to tell you. America is the youngest nation in the world. We're going through what other nations went through hundreds of years ago. But we don't want to wind up in the same place they did, do we? If you want to understand how a dictatorship begins, take a look at Cuba. Started out with some conflicts, grew into some riots, guerrilla war, then a full civil war, and then a dictatorship. And that's what's happening in this country. During the 2016 presidential election campaign, the DNC, Democratic National Committee, hired thugs and groups of protesters to basically interrupt Trump rallies, cause riots, cause fights, and attack their fellow Americans. Then we have this group, Antifa. Let's take a look at them for a second.
The mainstream left is tacitly supporting a fascist group that is committing terrorism to crush civil rights in the United States. Let that sink in.
To just make a statement by being here, and I think the protesters are doing the same, and props to them for the ones who are doing it non-violently, but I think that's a very rare thing indeed, so thank you.
Are you surprised? Ma'am?
This is how they reacted to the beating, the pepper spraying of women, and the violent rioting at UC Berkeley last night. BuzzFeed writer Hannah Jewell.
Laughing my ass off, Berkeley.
Vice writer Hussein Kasvani.
Listening to Milo on Fox in light of all the stuff happening in Berkeley, and how he's being allowed to appear reasonable in all this.
Right, so a gay man giving a talk about offensive Halloween costumes versus violent rioters attacking women with pepper spray and flagpoles. And you're saying Milo is the unreasonable one. MSNBC producer Kyle Griffin.
Trump is considering pulling federal funds from UC Berkeley because he's upset about protests over a Breitbart editor.
Bludgeoning people with wooden poles because they have a different opinion to you isn't a protest, that's violent assault. Google engineer Adrienne Porterfeld.
Last night I got a call from the UC Berkeley Alum Association asking for donations. Wonder if they're psychic. Time to donate, I think.
Yeah, time to donate, because there's just not enough money to fund vicious attacks on people for exercising their free speech rights, is there? The mayor of Berkeley.
Using speech to silence marginalised communities and promote bigotry is unacceptable. Hate speech isn't welcome in our community.
But using fists, feet, flagpoles and pepper spray to silence speech, that's tolerant and liberal, Hollywood director Judd Apatow.
This is just the beginning. When will all the fools who are still supporting Trump realise what is at stake?
You want to threaten 55 million American gun owners with civil war. This is one of the organisers, Yvette Falarka. She claimed Milo's free speech was raping and killing her.
What they're really trying to do is they're trying to assert their power, threaten us, intimidate us, rape us, kill
Regressive leftists like Nazreen Malik, who say violence against Trump supporters should be tolerated. Regressive leftists like India Knight and the deluge of other journalists who called for or joked about Trump being assassinated. George Soros, financier of domestic terrorism. Actual fascists viciously beating innocent people. Let's be clear though, Antifa doesn't care how many times you insult them. They don't care that they're loathed by the vast majority of Americans. This is not about attracting support. It's about intimidating people out of exercising their First Amendment right. These people are fascists. Antifa also knows that it can rely on the mainstream media to report the fake news that this was a protest. It wasn't a protest, it was a violent riot. But the media will continue to report that it was a protest because it fits into their chaos narrative. They're not protests, they're violent riots and have no place in a civil society. When all you have left is violence, you've lost the argument. For years, the left compensated for having no argument by calling us racist, bigots, Islamophobes and misogynists. And for many years, it worked. Now it no longer works. So what do they have left? Intimidation, thuggery, and domestic terror.
Now, recently we had this Charlottesville incident, and nobody's defending any hateful or ignorant message that was being delivered there. But imagine if nobody was there to hear it. If you're watching a TV show you don't like, you listen to a radio and you don't like what's playing on it, you change the channel. You don't like the message, you don't go up to hear it. During the 2016 election, the Democrats, the left-wing media, and the Hollywood elites used these same thug tactics to shut down Trump rallies, to keep his message from getting out to the American people. They also used them to intimidate Trump voters. And now, beyond the intellect of a potato knows, this wasn't about white supremacists, nor was it about any statues. That we had a black president for 8 years, and for a good majority of the time they controlled the Congress and the Senate. And there was never a mention of any offensive statues or monuments. In fact, the Democratic Party is the only party who's actually embraced a well-known KKK Klan leader, Robert Byrd. And there's 52 federal buildings that bear his name. So let's cut the bullshit.